Well, joining us now, a very special guest, Ambassador Atul Keshap, has been a diplomat here in India. He is now president of the US-India Business Council, someone who clearly welcomes this deal. We've spoken about it for quite some time. At a certain stage, it didn't seem it was happening anytime soon, but it has. Your first reaction?
Well, utter and complete joy, Vishnu. I'm delighted that the two governments have come to an agreement. I think it's going to be good for both of us.
What is your understanding of the deal's exact scope? Does it, for example, cover specific areas, agriculture, energy, defense, tech, non-tariff barriers, or market access commitments? And, in a sense, what timeline do you anticipate for the ratification?
Well, Vishnu, right now we're looking at a series of social media statements that have come out by both leaders and by other officials in both governments. So the details are a little bit thin, but I think what's going to happen in the days to come is that both governments will release some form of joint statement that gives more details. There may be something like a Federal Register notice in the United States that gives, quite some detail to the various importers, and that similar sort of process may happen in India. I imagine that will take a few more days. So I think in the week to come, we'll probably get quite a bit more detail about what this entails. But what's clear is that some sort of landmark agreement has been struck between the two leaders, in which there will be a very substantial reduction in tariffs in both directions, which is really going to create an enormous boost for trade in both directions. And both leaders have cited the $500 billion goal. So I'm quite optimistic that in things like agriculture, energy, technology, including chips, and capital equipment and much else besides, we're going to see quite a bit of impetus and boost in U.S.-India trade relations, which then sets the table very nicely for the next phase of the trade negotiations, which is in services, where our two countries lead the entire world.
So President Trump has stated that India has agreed to reduce tariffs and non-tariff barriers on U.S. goods to zero and commit to purchasing, as you mentioned, $500 billion in American products, including presumably petroleum, defense, agriculture, alongside shifting away from Russian oil imports. From the U.S. business perspective, how realistic and enforceable are these commitments? And, in your mind, which specific sectors or products stand to gain the most from increased access to Indian markets?
Well, first of all, there's the old adage, trade follows the flag. I think that's true in India as well. And what we've seen is an enormous signal by both leaders, the very tops of their governments, indicating renewed faith in each other, a desire to grow the economic and strategic and technological relationship. So I think business in both countries will respond very favorably. Look, business craves predictability. USIBC is a 50-year-old institution comprised of the leading companies in America and India. And when you're going to make a multi-billion-dollar decision over a period of time as much as 10, 20, 30 years, you want predictability. What this deal does is it offers that measure of predictability and renewed confidence in one another that I think will unleash all sorts of positive momentum. You mentioned oil and gas. Certainly America is a superpower in oil and gas production, but then there's also technology in so many different ways. India is hosting the AI summit in a few days. There's quantum computing, there's semiconductors, there's so much that can unfold from this because the governments have sent a powerful psychological signal.
So the deal appears to be tied to broader strategic shifts, including energy sourcing away from Russia. Do you see, significant Indian oil imports from Venezuela as an alternative?
Well, there's been some discussion that this has been offered. And, we've talked about this in the past where there has been very productive discussion between Washington and Delhi in 2008 and 2010 about Iranian oil. I think that same sort of discussion has been happening. It's been happening behind closed doors. It clearly has been constructive. And if you, read between the tea leaves, it would seem that some Venezuelan oil has been offered.
And so that's certainly something that we'd have to keep an eye out on. But we just signed a free trade agreement with the EU. I mean, you don't get two massive trade deals happening within, let's say, a week anywhere in the world. I don't know if it's ever happened anywhere else. How do you see this agreement strengthening the overall US-India strategic partnership? And would you agree from an Indian standpoint, we've got diverse sources. So if things don't necessarily go the way that we want them to with, say, America, there's always the EU to rely on and vice versa.
Well, I'm old fashioned and I cling to the old ways, and I love it when great democracies collaborate and come up with friendly agreements. So I applaud India for the great work it's done to sew up all of these free trade agreements. This is a very new face of India compared to the 1970s with import substitution. And so it's great to see India blossom in world affairs and to see the Indian economy grow as strongly as it is, and to see India be as confident about settling and finalizing these trade agreements with the EU, with the US, with others. It is a marvel to behold. And I really applaud the Indian system, leadership for what they're doing. And I applaud the United States for rallying and concluding this deal. I think Ambassador Gore should be very proud that in just days after his arrival in India, he has achieved a massive outcome for his country that is going to be beneficial for both of our countries. So I see this as all positive momentum, Vishnu. And yes, it's good to have options in life. And yes, it's good to have friends. And India clearly has shown in the past year that it has both.
Final question, is the relationship back on an even keel? Let's accept the fact that it's not been on an even keel for some time.
So this is an era of great geostrategic and geoeconomic uncertainty. I think it's clear that the great democracies realize they have to rely on one another. We have to ensure resilient supply chains for our people. We have to look at things like APIs for pharmaceuticals, semiconductor supply chains, critical mineral supply chains, the nuclear renaissance. All of these things have to happen with the great democracies working in concert. And as I said, I cling to the old religion that the free and great open democracies need to work with one another. So I think what happens now is that as a result of this deal being struck, a pause button that was hit between both systems while waiting for this negotiation will now switch to a play button. Because in the world I used to occupy in government, when a negotiation is ongoing, every single other matter gets almost held in abeyance while you're waiting for the overall negotiation to be struck. Now that that has been done, I see a lot of positive momentum on Quad and on all the other areas that I just mentioned. I think the U.S. and India will go forward to even greater strengths.